mandatory service council meetings, and there's mandatory board meetings, there's mandatory exec meetings, and in those, I've made so many friends. All of those people who I've spent every 2 weeks, every week, locked up in the same room discussing the issues, having a couple of beers afterwards, that's what's bringing me back. And I believe that by working together with those people and having a good time afterwards, that's what's going to bring me back. And I'm determined to make that happen again. Any other candidates?
One of the major pillars of my platform is growth. And just looking back at my first year in the CUS working as VP academic, right after the elections happened, Spencer and Connor Topley at that time, they brought us down to a cabin down in Washington, and that was the most reckless night I absolutely remember. We got to connect with each other. We were more than simply people who worked together. We were friends and family. We still touch base with each other daily, basically. And that's the sort of environment I want to build, where I know, where for every single one of my executives, I know what their professional, their academic, their personal goals are, and that I can give as much as possible to them to make it an amazing experience, whether it's introducing them to someone, whether it's getting them involved in really cool events as a side project, or simply chilling with them and caring about how their personal life is going. And I think it's creating an environment where, yes, we are working together, but yes, we are also students, and this is a moment, this is a year that I want to make as memorable as possible for every single person involved in the organization.
To Giannis's point, I've heard stories of that weekend. I don't know how you remember anything. So, very simply, it starts with me. I've talked about today that my platform is based on team development and professional leadership. Ultimately, the CUS exists as like this pyramid where the VPs have their own portfolios. I like looking at that by turning it upside down and having me support the portfolios, pretty much just getting out of their way, letting them have the autonomy to run a project and have the most, I guess, freeing experience with knowing that I'm backing them. So that when they come back, they have a project that they can put down and sign that they've made a stamp on the CUS, but also that they know what it's like to be a leader and having a good example of a leader that's getting out of the VP's way and letting them do what they would do best, and not to be locked up in rooms arguing over policy, although I am sure we can arrange some sort of beers afterwards, so that's me. Thank you.
I think all the other candidates have, in a sense, touched on this. They've touched on what about their CUS experience was special to them and what drove them. For some people, it was being locked up in meetings and having years after. Some people, it was an awesome academic experience. The point is, there's one thing that drove them. And that's what we find on each of the VPs, each of the people on board. What drives you? So what I would do in that role is I'd go sit down with each person and find out what you want. You're in this, yes, you're here to serve, yes, you're here to give. What about you, this appeals to you? What about this CUS do you really love? Is this something you want to learn? And let's make sure you learn that over the course of the next 1 year. That way, not only have you given a lot to the CUS, but you've received something that's really valuable to you that you can take away. Because ultimately, it boils down to people. Like I said, what drives you? Thank you.
I think it's all about what makes you proud. If the CUS makes you proud, then you want to be a part of the CUS. So just instilling that pride in people and having awesome events, and make sure that it's a family, that everybody is inclusive in this family. That's what makes people want to stay in this family. That's what makes people want to grow and continue to grow in this family and have pride for the Commerce and our society.
More questions? Mr. Outgoing President.
All right. Pumped that I'm done. Yeah, so I've had a pretty good chance at taking apart a few of the people's campaigns, and I have a question for Moses and Rob, where a lot of the other candidates have mentioned specific things that they want to do. You guys kind of haven't. I couldn't kind of pick at your guys' platforms, unfortunately. Could you just kind of inform everyone here, like specific projects or certain things that you want to take on this year that will make this year memorable?
I appreciate your points. To that, there is a video on my Vote for Moses Ritu Facebook page that explains specific points. But now that you asked, we can go through them here. One of the key things, like I mentioned before, is the CUS account. What that account does is provide direct incentives for students. to go out for these things, whether it's poets, whether it's clubs, whatever it is. It provides you an incentive to do that. But it also makes it easier for clubs to deliver these services. Because there's no value added in sitting in these booths trying to sell tickets. There's a lot of value you add when you're behind your computer for hours, trying to work out an itinerary, or just conferencing with the hotels. That's where we add value. So we take away these things that add very little value, like selling tickets, and bring the two of you together. That's how we get people engaged. Another way we want to do this is by creating space within our events for students to just be students. Because truth be told, when we're out there and we're all in suits, it's hard to tell who's a student, who's the alumni, and who's the prof. And you don't want to go, hey, what's up, to a prof, right? No, it doesn't. So you want to be as professional as possible when you don't know what's happening. And that's a problem we have in Sorda. We go out and we're very professional with each other. We're not just students. At the end of the day, we are students. And we want to connect to students. So we need to give students a chance to be students at all these events. That's the second reply to it. And ultimately, it's something that the board has been working on for a while, the SCOFs project. And the SCOFs thing, which is an initiative where we give all the people in Sorda SCOFs, it was created to build community within people because we're united with things we share. And so the SCOFs is something that we share. And these things can work as safe objects. So if you see someone out there at one of these events, yes, he's in a suit, but he has a scarf. So he's definitely Sorda. We can talk to him, we can be friends. Let's connect.
Thanks for your question, Connor. I'll address 2 points. The first is using the executive as a multiplier, and the second is entrenching the spirit of solder inside the Constitution. So first, we already talked about it a lot today. The exec acts as a multiplier for sharing the CUS culture spirit. The more developed and influential the executive is, the better their portfolios are, the better the services are to the school. The VP internal, which runs Frosh, if they are able to better develop the Frosh chair, which then develops the Frosh leaders, that whole experience is elevated to another level. It's basically how much the exec is developed, how high they can raise so that they can go and develop the rest of the student body. Because there is such limited time, being able to develop the exec as such is this huge priority so that everyone else can have more beneficial services. The second is entrenching this spirit inside the Constitution. So the Constitution was written 2 years ago. It was rewritten this past year and is voting on right now. Quick plug, vote in the referendum if you haven't done already. Vote yes for the CUS. And what essentially what not the referendum, but what essentially entrenching the spirit is the fact that we have changed it. We need to really solidify the culture that everyone here is kind of talking about, that intangible inside the writing, that Constitution that's done by doing the Constitution, the little things in it very, very well, and that's coming in day after day with the executive and pushing through and making the experience for a roundtable better and not having any questions at the end of the day, did we do our job? So thank you. Entrenching the spirit in the Constitution and developing the executive are what I stand and what I want to change this year. Thank you.
Any other questions? Lauren.
Specific for Paulina. I was just wondering what your thoughts are behind why we need another 5-year plan. I never said it was a 5-year plan. I said it was a multi-year plan in my platform. It's not necessarily a need, but I think that's going to really push the organization further. Last year, we have been very reactive at the board. I don't remember one time when we sat down and said, what do we want to achieve this year? What is it that our goal at the end of it is? So for me, it's to break down our goals for this year, for next year, maybe for the next year as well. For example, in 3 years, you can set a goal of, we want to win every major international case competition. And for me, we can start doing it now, and the students are going to be benefiting from it right now. And in these 3 years, we can break down our goals into how we're going to be achieving it every year. So for example, for the first year, we will start involving the first and second years more into the case competitions, putting on more internal case competitions in order to develop that base of interested case competitors, and in order to build their skills. And in 3 years, perhaps, we will be able to win that every major case competition. That can go for any goal that we can set for ourselves. Yes, it has been mentioned that we have 100% transition from position to position every year. But I think on